Just keep saying to yourself, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. It's only a movie that will have you living in the sixth dimension, moving in the wrong direction. A new fantasy, musical, comedy. The Forbidden Zone.
And welcome back to Cult Musical Zone. And we have, of course, our recurring cast, the two cult musical aficionados, Helena and Tyler. And today we're going to talk about the infamous, forgotten, and underrated cult musical classic, Forbidden Zone. Now, this episode is going to be a little bit different because this is quite a complex and super controversial film. And it's one of those cult musicals that you either love it or you absolutely despise it. So today we're going to talk about it. But first, let's just talk about our first time seeing this masterpiece / shit show.
Only masterpiece, no shit show.
Yeah.
Helena, how about you? And I know you're gonna flash us your what you've got.
Yes. Well, I'm going to start because I'm going to flash several things during this. So I went downstairs and I found my Betamax of Forbidden Zone. So this is my Betamax tape that I actually got this last year, but yeah, real beta. Unfortunately, I can't open it because it's actually still sealed, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I am a big fan of this movie. Back in the late 90s when I was in college, I was having a pretty miserable experience and sort of just didn't have a lot of friends in this small town I went to college in, and it really sucked. And so I kind of drowned my sorrows in a lot of cult movies. Like I just watched everything that was on the cult shelf at Hollywood Video because Hollywood Video is better than Blockbuster Video. Sorry, not sorry. Anyway. So I digress. So it was like getting down to like the last few things that I hadn't seen yet on the cult shelf. And so I'm like, all right, Forbidden Zone. I've been seeing this cover since the 80s. I may as well just rent this and finally see what it's all about. And then it was kind of like that cartoon that people post on Facebook where they're like, they hear the first song and they're like, and then they hear the next song and then they're like, and then like 10 hours later it shows them, they're like, that was me watching this movie. It was like this progressive, like, this is my family. This is what I want to be. This is the art of my life. And now I totally and utterly love Danny Elfman forever. So that was my experience of watching this movie. It like cracked my brain open at a really critical time. So yeah, that's why today I'm marked with the mark of the Elfman. So that's my story.
Awesome. Me? Is it me? All right. Yeah, I'm trying to remember, and I don't have any cool things. All I've got is the Blu-ray. I don't even because you can't find I would love to find the soundtrack on vinyl, and I'd be able to afford it. Maybe one day I will. Anyway, I'm trying to think. I knew about it because I had really started to get into cult films in college early on, and I found a DVD copy, a used DVD copy in a Sam Goody, I'm pretty sure in Myrtle Beach of all places. It was really weird, and it was the Phantoma DVD release, and so it was just the regular black and white version that had only been available for the longest time, and I remember watching it like probably late one night and this was in the summer. I was back home from college, and it was the crassest thing I had ever seen. But something just hooked me about it. And then I remember later, obviously a lot of people in the Rocky Horror community really love this. I know some of them have done Shadowcast performances with this. And what my buddy Steve had kept saying, he's like, why aren't you watching the colorized version? That Richard Elfman, that's what he wanted to do. And so they put it out on Blu-ray, and I ordered that. And then in color, it's just amazing. And then also it's got like a little bit of an extra beginning to the Queen's Revenge or whatever the name of the song is. Mm-hmm. so that just opened it, but it's I mean, obviously it was weird. I knew it was going to be weird. And I do consider it a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite films of all time, not just cult musical or whatever. It's one of my favorite films of all time because it's obviously so unique. Um, and it's just, I mean, I do have to call it art. It's just very artful. I just think both the Elfman brothers were very blessed with talents, and they, came together in this one film. So, uh, yeah, I think so. I totally got away from the part of the question. I think I was about 20. I think I was about 20 when I first saw it.
The summer that again, of course, Rocky Horror and Shock Treatment and The Best Little Whorehouse were my segue into cult musicals. And so I saw Forbidden Zone the same summer that I saw Earth Girls Are Easy, Pirate Movie, the first nudie musical, Apple. Have you seen the first? Yeah, the Apple.
Sure.
With Forbidden Zone, I guess I was still. I mean, I knew of the Elfman Brothers. I mean, everyone knows about the Elfman Brothers, especially because of The Nightmare Before Christmas and all of those particular cult movie musicals. But I think with the Forbidden Zone, I was wondering when I first saw it, I didn't know if there was a reason for it to exist in terms of I know what Rocky Horror's message was. Of
Hmm.
course, Little Whorehouse and Shock Treatment's message was, but it took me a couple times to see if it's just silly, absurdist Elfman Brothers just being kitschy and campy, or if there really is some sort of message. And I guess that leads back into the point that I've realized is not every particular piece of literature or film has to have a message.
Yeah.
Some works can just be fun and stupid.
Hmm.
And so Forbidden Zone, I may be in the cult. I know I'm like I might not be the cult musical queen, but I'm the cult musical prince. So I think I know a lot about the cult musicals. But I may be in the cult musical minority that Forbidden Zone's not in my top 10 or 20. In terms of um I
Blasphemy.
I think I like its
Yeah.
contribution to the cult musical fandom, but
Yeah.
it's not my favorites. I think it's very kick-ass in terms of like very rockabilly, very kid, very campy, but it's
Hmm.
not my favorites. And we'll get into I one of the reasons I get, or many of the reasons I just never connected with it. I love it in terms of it being one of those films that I show my friends in the vein of the Apple
Yeah.
favorite movie, but it's not one that I consider to be one of my favorites. Which
I
leads
get
into
you.
the plot, of course. Plot of the plot of Forbidden Zone is bored and it's very midnight movie-ish.
Hmm.
I know that this is like your cult musical baby. Do you see any merits in the plot, or do you just see it as fun, campy, trashy viewing?
Well, let me, as I normally do, go into my background spiel on this guy. So, since I am an old lady, there's a lot of jokes here that are aimed at more people, and not seriously, so that are more people my age would kind of get. We were sort of the last generation that's like the cutoff of people get these jokes, people don't get these jokes. So
Hmm.
when you think about the whole black and white thing, kind of why the Forbidden Zone needs to be seen in black and white, and I understand they colorized it to make it accessible, and okay, whatever, but it's in black and white because of Max Fleischer and Max Fleischer
Hmm.
cartoons, which were these Betty Boop. You think of Betty Boop from the 1930s, but in pre 1933, pre Hays Code, those cartoons were pretty risque in a lot of ways. And so it was throwing back to that kind of art and that kind of a style of just sort of broad comedy and kind of burlesque sorts of things. Throwing back to Cab Calloway, throwing back to Betty Boop, throwing back to all of that kind of stuff that was just a little bit naughty, but then sort of adding that late 70s LA sensibility to it, because that time was an incredibly fertile time in LA for art and for performance. I mean, you had the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo doing their thing on the street. I mean, for Christ's sake, you could go and see them. You could see Danny Elfman performing on the street with this troupe. It just blows my mind. But you also had like Pee Wee Herman coming up doing the Pee Wee Herman show. So it's like this was such a crazy time in LA that this is sort of a punk new wave aesthetic combined with this vintage aesthetic. Pardon?
Elvira was part of that sort of.
Elvira was very much in that scene too. It's like that whole time was just really rich for this kind of art. That and you even see it later when they show the Betty Page painting in the movie. You get that that's kind of part of the aesthetic too. So it's a real homage to the overall aesthetic of that, and also to like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Expressionism, that kind of thing. So, but that's kind of the background. The plot. Yeah, I think they just kind of made it up as they went along, but they were having fun. And some of this stuff was stuff they had done with the troupe, the Mystic Knights. They had done, especially like St. James Infirmary, Danny is the Devil kind of thing. They had little bits and pieces of this had been done. And then like Susan Terrell came in and did her own number, which she wrote. So it's just it was kind of like a stone soup. It's like one person was like, I've got this piece of this. Oh, I've got this piece of this. Oh, I have this friend. This friend Hervé. I can bring him in. I can bring this person in. And it was kind of this crazy, like everything combining correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. And I think that's part of the reason I really gravitated toward it is with kind of a whole theater of the absurd thing, and from having that sort of college training and with the theater degree and kind of recognizing that. I was trying to watch it at work today, and I work at a bank in a kind of more bougie part of Nashville. And I had to be very careful. I mean, I had it like on my desk and like people would walk in. So and I've watched it a million times because I really do love it, and I think it's hilarious. But I really was, in preparation for talking about this tonight, I was really trying to find a message. I was trying to find, and then I realized it doesn't really have that, and it doesn't really need that. That's not the reason I like it. I like it because it is this sort of mishmash of like you said, the Max Fleischer, the cartoons references, and I do, and I mean, I like the black and white version, but there's something about the hand colored, well, not hand colored because they did it digitally. That adds a whole other layer to it for me that makes it more of an art piece, a very crass art piece. And like you said, I think another reason that I just really love it is it you can tell that it was a collaborative effort. Like you said, everybody would come in with their own thing, and everyone was so open to that, to anything, obviously. So yeah.
So yeah, I think I do love it for how original it is and how just fun viewing it is. Because Rocky Horror, of course, its messages don't dream it, be it shock treatment. The Best Little Whorehouse has so many messages, but like Earth Girls Are Easy and the Pirate Movie, Forbidden Zone is just fun viewing. It's hilarious. It's very crass, and I think this is more leaning into the legacy, and we'll get into that. I think it's totally irreverent, but that's what makes it so wonderful. It's a snapshot of like, I think I'm not old enough for that particular generation, but in my mind, it was pretty kick-ass for its time as well. It really took no prisoners. Like it made of everybody, which I love. And another thing that I love about the film that has to do with the plot and the film itself is that there's such a collection of cult icons in terms of Susan Terrell, of course, Crybaby, Forbidden Zone, Rockula. So she's like the cult musical queen. And then you've got the Kipper Kids, which are their own cult troupe. One of them is still married to Bette Midler. And then you have the Oingo Boingo, which were like an underground cult sort of troupe. And then you have, I can't ever pronounce his name, but Fantasy Island actor.
Hervé Villechaize.
That's playing King Fausto. So there's such a huge collection of cult icons thrown in the mix. And I think that's what makes it incredibly original. And it's fun viewing. And it's not a film that you can watch with certain types of friends
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
my people are the people who appreciate movies like Forbidden Zone and Showgirls and the pirate movie, who don't get offended or who don't see that it doesn't have any merit. Because Forbidden Zone is just crazy, and I think it's very much like an acid trip. But that
Mm.
leads into the music of this particular masterpiece. Um, what a lot of people don't know in terms of this film is that, the Elfman brothers wrote very little of they did the score, the incidental music, but I think there's only 3 songs in the entire film that they actually wrote.
Hmm.
Forbidden Zone theme, Witch's Revenge, or the Queen's Revenge, and the finale. And I don't know if you can answer this question, Helena, but the rest of Susan Terrell, of course, wrote Witch's Egg, which is
Mhm.
favorite. But the rest of the film's music, like the alphabet song and all the rest, the songs that the Kipper kids sing, are songs from the jazz era,
Mhm.
in the
Yeah.
20s and the 30s. Why do you think, and we all know Danny Elfman is a prolific songwriter. Why do you think, besides the very few that he wrote, why do you think they included those songs from that particular era? I mean, especially since it doesn't really fit with the rest of the songs he wrote.
Well, I mean, in the gist of the movie and it being that like 1930s style Max Fleischer look, kind of overall they went for with the black and white and everything. I mean, the music fits perfectly with that. So they went back and found these sort of novelty songs and they took out sort of snippets of things that they liked. I was listening in the commentary. I think Richard Elfman said he was listening to Dr. Demento when they played Pico and Sepulveda on there, which is how he heard that song. And as a troupe, they had been performing to a lot of these vintage songs just in their stage show. So Danny was very much into, I'm on a first name basis with him, Danny. I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Oh,
But anyway, so he was very into these old kind of pieces of music, and they pretty much included them in the show just because they liked them and were like, people should hear this music because it's great, and nobody's listened to it in 40 years. So that's how you end up with those songs, and you get Some of These Days by Cab Calloway, which is just a great song. It's like a banger. Pico and Sepulveda, which I love, which Danny sort of appended on to the end of that with the
Mhm.
factory music, which I also love. I can say I've been to Pico and Sepulveda, and it really is where nobody's dreams come true. There's like a donut shop and like a substation there. It's great. Um,
And songs they used were in public domain, so that
a
probably
lot of them were
Yeah.
in public
easy,
domain. Yeah.
easier to sort of. And I didn't know
Mhm.
Terrell wrote Witch's Egg. Like I didn't know that she was like a songwriter.
Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
either. I mean,
Woman,
multi-talented woman. She's very talented.
Hmm.
very. Do you have a particular favorite song in this film, Helena, or songs?
I mean, I love all of them. I mean, I hate to say it, I don't love Witch's Egg that much. I don't love the Revenge song that much, but like, I love the whole Danny Elfman scene with that song. I love Pico and Sepulveda. I love the Some of These Days. I mean, there's so many other bits of music in there that I really, really just love. I can't even choose a favorite.
Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, well, I love the soundtrack. I mean, and it'll pop up, and I'm just type of person who'll just put my music on shuffle, like I'm going to work and everything. So I'll have like the Journey Through the Intestines or the Hercules Family theme come on. As far as the songs, which that was another thing that I hadn't really thought about till today. I'm like, as far as original songs go, there's not that many. Um, I just really, really love Queen's Revenge because it is so complex and it changes all these time signatures and it's crazy. And it's the fact that he can make it work that it's just so insane to me. It's not obviously wasn't really an original song, but I love the Squeeze It, the Moocher. And I honestly really, really love the finale song.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't know why. It's just
Mhm.
I don't it's it I don't know. It's like that's what I rock out to, which explains a lot about me. But yeah.
I love the Forbidden Zone theme.
Oh,
Yeah.
And every time I listen to the Misfits song Forbidden Zone, I'm like, oh, they had to been totally inspired by the film Forbidden Zone. I feel like that's
Mhm.
a remake of Forbidden Zone. And I like Witch's Egg. I love the line that says, I can't remember the exact lyrics. When I turn, what is it, 7, my papa said, you better get yourself a wife because you're, what is
Oh,
it? You're
12. When I turned 12, Papa said, little woman, better get yourself a wife because you're too mean for a man, so clean up your life.
I love that. I love that. I love that line.
Peters.
I love that line. The thing that I love about this music is that it's so trippy and it really fits. It's just absurdist. It's really absurdist, and
Mhm.
uh, I think the music itself is very reminiscent of the time. It came out. This film came out in '80, didn't it? Was it '80?
Was made, I think, between like 79, 82. I think it had its big video release, which is how a lot of people saw it, but it was a product of the late 70s for sure.
Yeah. So and it's because it's so hard to pinpoint because it is black and white.
Hmm.
And so it gives sort of like a timeless feel to it. You can't place exactly when it was, made. But I think it's beautiful. I think the animation's beautiful.
Ah,
And
yes.
um, I remember the second time I watched it with a friend of mine, she was like, "What the fuck is this?" I've never asked this particular question before, but if you had to pick a favorite scene in this film that you just wanted to show someone that was new to cult musical fans, scene would you show? And I know exactly what scene I would show, and I did.
Oh, I would definitely have to say the alphabet scene, the alphabet song scene. It's so
Mhm.
amazing with the Kipper kids and they're
Yeah.
dressed up as little girls with the pigtails and they've got the things in their noses. It's so
Yeah.
bizarre. I love it.
I think mine's kind of similar to that. I would show the first classroom scene where she does the Josephine Baker
Hmm.
number, which again, that was another. Oh, that was one thing I wanted to add on earlier too. You were talking about all the old music they used. That was great for me because I honestly had never heard of Cab Calloway or Josephine Baker or Felix, whoever sings Pico and
Felix
Cebola.
Figueroa. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a good education for me. But I don't know why. Oh, I would say okay. I would say when they find squeeze it in the trash can, going and then going
Yeah.
through the first classroom. Um,
Hmm.
it's so ridiculous.
And
Yeah.
it's filled with what I love about that scene. It really sets the tone that no one is safe in this film.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Hmm.
the Elfman brothers are Jewish slash. There's some. I think what is it? They have like German or Russian immigrants family as
Hmm.
well,
Yeah.
but nobody in
Oh,
the
yeah.
film.
And everyone's in their underwear for no, it's like a nightmare. It's like,
Or
it's like
topless.
nightmare where you have like weird people around you. It's in black and white and you're in your underwear. That's kind of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But also, like nobody is off limits to be made fun of, which I love. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody. And we can bleep this, I guess, but if people are still with us after the 16th episode and they're not offended yet, then wonderful.
They're
Uh,
troopers.
my my favorite line is, "You ain't taking me nowhere, you hunky bitch."
Yep. There's so many quotable lines in this
That's
movie. It's
that's one of
ridiculous.
my favorites. Well, I
Yeah.
love what he says right before because when you were gonna ask what the favorite lines were, I was like holding on to this. Was I love I said, well, the man was cheating, so I just had to do
Just
away
had
with him, and that's
to
all
do
there
it.
was to it.
Hmm.
I just love that.
And doing some research, Danny Elfman, of course, in the particular climate that we live in, which we'll get into the whole legacy aspect, he basically was like, nobody is off limits in this film. He's like, I'm Jewish, and they've called this film anti-Semitic, but they called it everything. But
Well, they had their
what,
Jewish grandfather in it playing a Jew. It's like
right,
they
Yeah.
were really taking the piss out of themselves.
exactly. Everybody in this film is a caricature of who they're trying to
Mhm.
play, which
Yeah.
very reminiscent of John Waters. I don't know if
Very
there was
much so.
any.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was any sort of
Oh, I'm
inspiration or
sure.
Oh,
tap.
I definitely feel like they were. I think that's probably another reason I love it. I think they were definitely inspired by Pink Flamingos and Female Trouble, and then Well, Desperate Living would have already been around too before this one.
Mhm.
And that's what I love about it too. I don't find, and I mean, it's because it is offensive, but I'm not offended by it. You know, like I laughed again today, which I had to turn it down. Again, if we still have viewers, you know, when they find squeeze it in the trash can and they're talking about Renee, which again, that, you know, now is kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I love when Flash says, "No, he's your brother. He just dresses like a broad. He's a faggot." And he goes, "You're the faggot." I find that funny. It's
Yeah.
funny to me,
And
you
the
know.
pseudo menstrual cramps,
Oh my
I think
god.
about that's hilarious. It's got the foaming mouth. It's
Oh
so
god
goofy, and I know
dang.
we're not supposed to laugh at it, but ha ha ha.
It's
I don't know if
funny.
they were like influenced by John Waters, but maybe John Waters and of course the Elfman brothers just tapped into sort of the same irreverence. Like I
Hmm.
forget it. Maybe it was John Waters. It's like I mean, humanity is worth making fun of. I mean, the
Mhm.
way to like get over like the shit world we live in is to make fun of it. And I think, usually I know we're hopping around, but I think cult musical fans can't transform cult musicals and try to transport them to modern day and try to change them, sanitize them.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
there's such a huge movement with trying to sanitize the Rocky Horror and the Rocky
Uh,
Horror.
don't get me
Um,
started. But yeah.
there's such, a huge, like even Crybaby is so irreverent and I love it.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Um, my favorite, sorry, we will talk about Crybaby eventually and you guys can come. My
Yeah.
favorite, I actually quote it to myself quite often and it's, don't get shook up on, no, what is it? Don't flip out, mama. And then Hatchet, yeah, sometimes shook up old lady get cut. I just love the type of films that make fun of humanity that sort of is over the top and it's outrageous. And maybe
Hmm.
that's what Forbidden does is like it holds the
Oh yeah.
ridiculous up to humanity.
For
Um,
sure. Yeah.
seriously, like the apple took itself seriously. That's why it's funny. But what
Yeah.
makes Forbidden Zone and John Waters' film, other films like that, funny is that it makes fun of like the things that you're not supposed to make fun of, but at the same time, it turns racism on its head and homophobia
Yeah.
on it and you know, sentiment. What I can't even say that word.
Semitism.
Anti-Semitism.
Yes, Lord have mercy. It turns
Yeah.
everything on its head and it makes fun of everything, and it's like, um, I don't think people get it. I think
No, they
there's
don't. Yeah.
movement, and you can probably attest to this, Helena. We were just talking about this before we started. Tubi, Forbidden Zone in colors on Tubi, but along with other cult musicals, Teen Witch, Rockula, etc. But the version on Tubi now is edited.
Right.
It's colorized and it's edited.
Yep.
Danny Elfman has done because he
Richard Elfman.
oh
Oh.
sorry, Richard
Yeah.
Elfman.
Oh, is this the new one?
You with the clowns?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't need to see that. Sorry.
I've seen it. I've seen it on YouTube, and that's yeah.
but Richard Elfman sort of backtracked and said, this is what I wanted to do. And it's like, do we live in a world we have to excuse art or we have to sanitize art? I mean, we'll get into other aspects of this movie, but what do you think about like cult musicals like Rocky Horror and especially Forbidden Zone?
Yeah.
A lot of they're trying to sanitize them.
You really have
Yeah.
to look at them with your historical context glasses on. And it's interesting because folks like us, we have experience of having enjoyed that at the time it came out and laughed at the jokes and all of that kind of thing. And now it's like we know that, it's not right to make fun of people, it's not right to do this. At the time though, with historical context, that's kind of the juggling act you have to do, because it's like you can look at it with your historical context goggles on and say, at the time this was like really funny. Now we understand why it's not funny, but at the time it was super funny. I
Yeah.
guess it's kind of the best we can do.
That's no,
But it is still
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
but it,
problem. It's funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Making fun of people's differences, I mean, it's it used to be funny, and now it's like I think we're trying to find our footing with how funny it can be, where I feel like right now it's like, no, it's not at all funny. But I mean, I think it's a little funny, I
Yeah,
mean, that's kind of the thing.
and it should be. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's my thing, and again, I think the reason I love this, and definitely with John Waters, and he said it himself about his humor, because it's not mean spirited. They're making fun of but it's in a way it's like celebrating
Mhm.
everybody and all the weirdos and everything, and that's when, to be quite honest, it's kind of what's gotten me lately moving away from the Rocky Horror community, where I just don't really want to do those shows anymore because we have, it was an offensive show, like we would say, with all the callbacks and everything. The whole, what I always felt was understood though too was, but everybody's welcome. That's the whole point of it. We can laugh at each other, with each other. We're here because we don't fit in where we're supposed to, and so we have moved away from that. um and it is really sad, and like you said, we do, I mean, yeah, we know it's not right, but it's the
But the
I
thing,
don't, yeah,
I don't, I think the problem is trying to sanitize and put these modern glasses and explain and try to sort of defend our humor. And
yeah,
John has never apologized. No, I mean, and that's what I love. I don't necessarily like Pink Flamingos. I think that went a bit step too far in terms of certain things. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
Was it the talking asshole that did it?
know that it was the chicken.
The
But because
chickens, okay, I'm with you on
Well,
that.
they ate the
Before it's on
chicken
Blu-ray.
after. I mean, they plucked and ate it after, so it's like,
there is a musical called Zero Patience, and there's an asshole duet, and it's called The Asshole, and you can watch it on YouTube. But not
nice.
make any apologies for, and I don't try to see things through my eyes or modern lens, because what
Yeah.
happens is
Oh no, you
creativity,
can't. Right.
the death
Yeah.
of creativity, and
Hmm.
Forbidden
Mhm.
Zone, horror and shock treatment. And you couldn't even make Best Little Whorehouse in Texas nowadays.
No.
Um, they are a snapshot of when you were able to be creative, I think. And everybody was in on the joke in the John Waters films. Everybody was
Yeah.
in on the, and I like Forbidden Zone because it takes no prisoners and it is completely irreverent. And I like irreverent. I think
Hmm.
we need more irreverency nowadays.
Oh,
I
yeah.
need to be reverent because, like you said, Tyler, Rocky Horror is almost unrecognizable to how Rocky Horror was when I was 15,
Yep.
and post part of the free love sexual movement in the 1970s. Rocky
Hmm.
Horror is that original in terms of, the whole Dr. Frankenstein trope. But what was original about it was the whole free love movement. It came, with like, bisexual, trisexual, whatever. Trisexual means you'll try anything once, twice, make sure. Um, what I do
Shit.
love about Forbidden Zone, though, it's completely different, and it
Yeah.
doesn't take any prisoners. And I'm a bit sad that, like, the version that some alt musical fans will see is sanitized and edited. I mean,
Hmm.
why Richard gave in to that. I mean, I think it should be left alone. I like the colorization, although I know you're a purist, Helena, but I don't like the edited version.
Is
Yeah.
that the only way the Tubi version is edited though? Is just with the clown? Okay, because I wasn't sure if you meant that also that Tubi version had edited out some other offensive.
Dialogue beginning.
I'm sorry.
The dialogue is overdubbed in the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
Mm.
it's not. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I had seen, again. I saw that. I think somebody luckily put it on. So I'm like, I don't want to buy that. I've got the Blu-ray that of his director approved colorized version, and I get it. I mean, that part, that character has always kind of made me a little like,
Hmm.
but he's in it, that very brief part. We see him again. The other interesting thing is, when Squeeze It is being taken to the devil, one of the guys, or the minions or whatever you want to call them, is a black guy in blackface. So you've got that as well. So
It's
it's kind of
because
different.
everybody was conscious of what they were doing in the film.
Yeah.
everybody's conscious. Like even in like the John Waters film, the African American characters and the gay characters are so over the top, and it's because they're playing over the top caricatures of themselves. Which again, I that's why I love cult musicals in their original pure form, because I like their reverency, and I think we need more reverency. We need more reverency in the world.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, get a sense of humor too. Yeah, I mean,
The humor, because like comedy's not funny anymore.
no.
And I like shock factor. I've always liked shock factor, and I've always liked shock humor, because it's, if we human beings take each other so seriously and we take humanity seriously, then life is boring. And what I love about Forbidden Zone and films of that ilk is that it makes fun of humanity. We are that society.
Humans are awful, and people in Forbidden Zone are awful to each other. And actually,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what Richard was saying, that his message actually was that, you know, humans are shitty to each other. And like the family is shitty to each other. And, you know, once you get down into the Forbidden Zone, it's like somebody's going to come up and hump your butt. You know, it's like ridiculous.
Well, that's what the dad says. And he said, up above, I live
Yeah.
like a filthy rat. Here below, I live like so. You know, it's like, well, okay, you know,
May as well be in jail.
yeah.
The message of Forbidden Zone is that if given the opportunity, everybody would be immoral.
Pretty much.
Ooh.
There's not one moral person in Rocky Horror. Shock treatment changes it a bit, you know, Janet, and
Yeah.
but Rocky Horror, there really is no, everybody's immoral. Like there's no moral character in the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
And a character
Yeah.
that reminds me a lot of Columbia because of her Mickey Mouse ears. But
Oh yeah.
Forbidden Zone does represent sort of like sadomasochist, you know, lasciviousness. Maybe that's what the whole thing is that if anybody given the opportunity, you know, they would be immoral if they weren't.
He's made his own world. Look at this world you've cooked up for yourself. You know, this is the world that King Fausto lives in and has apparently made, is this like horror realm where everyone's a sex slave. So.
Yeah. Especially Renee.
Especially Renee. Poor Renee.
Renee wants it.
R.I.P. Renee.
Oh yeah.
One, I think, direction that could have happened is that when they're in the Hercules family, of course, or in the human world, everything's gray. But maybe when they go the Forbidden, maybe if the new edit could have done this, when they go the Forbidden Zone, it's like color, kind of like the whole boss thing.
But the Forbidden Zone's mostly in a cave.
But that's why it's funny, though. Wouldn't it be like then all of a sudden it's the Technicolor Wizard of Oz, you know? But you're really going to a place that's worse than hell,
right?
Well, our picture show was supposed to be in that. It would be when Brad and Janet, all the way up until when Frankenfurter comes down the
his lips. Yeah.
It was supposed to be in boom color. So I think that's really interesting. That would be an interesting choice. Now, talking about the legacy, I'm sure you're more familiar with what the legacy has become or what it could be in terms. I know that it bankrupted the Elfman brothers at some point.
Richard had bankrupted. Danny had already gone off to do Oingo Boingo and was finding pretty good success at the time. So, yeah, I know that. I think Richard had to mortgage his house. And I know that. So I was going to throw these up on screen real quick if I might share. But let me share real quick. So I got a chance to actually go and meet John Muto, who was the guy who did all the animations for this. So I was at his house, and you guys are totally going to laugh at me for this, but so his wife was the costume designer on Hocus Pocus, which if I had been a millennial or like a Gen Y, I would have been like, oh my God, Hocus Pocus. But instead I was like, oh my God, Forbidden Zone. So yeah, I got to like actually look at all of the drawings. It was so cool. He had this big folio with all of the drawings in them, which is pretty awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, so just flash that up there. But
another pop music section.
Yeah, so John Muto, I don't think ever got fully paid, because I think he was, when I was talking to him about the movie, he sounded like he was kind of bitter. Because I think Richard Elfman was saying on the commentary that hit just the animation sequences was like twice the budget of the live action sequences. So take that as it will. But yeah, I think the legacy of this probably hopefully made Richard back some money, even though I don't know that he's passing it on to John. So
But the thing is, I know that they did a stage musical in 2010. I don't know, it was very experimental and it was short fun. And then the Elfman brothers, of course, have not given up on the hope. But what would a sequel even look like? Oh?
well, so the Richard Elfman again, and you really have to separate the two Elfmans because Richard really is, I mean, Danny's like done with this and over. He's got his own thing going on. So Richard made Aliens, Clowns, and Geeks, which I have here in my hands, as a way to fund Forbidden Zone 2. So it's still in the works, but he made this other, it's pretty bad. I'm just going to say it's pretty bad. I still was entertained kind of by it. And it's funny, I actually got one of my friends to be in this movie. It was during COVID, and I saw Richard Elfman had posted on Facebook, like, hey, anybody in the LA area want to dress up like a hillbilly and come and be in my movie? And so I was like messaging my friend Justin, like, go over there and be in the movie. And he ended up in the movie. So that's the other reason why I have a physical copy of it. But this was intended to help fund Forbidden Zone 2, which has been, I mean, in development for 20 years. So.
Yep. Yeah.
So which Elfman brother do you think this particular film is the baby of, or the
Richard.
Richard.
Absolutely, Richard, 110%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Danny, they're along for the ride, then, you believe?
Oh, Danny is 110% along for the ride. It was like, hey, Danny, I know you're super busy with Oingo Boingo and being really popular and having, massive success in LA, if not the world. Can you write some songs for my movie? That's kind of how I feel like Richard kind of just goes along and calls in a favor from Danny every once in a while. So it's kind of like, oh, hey, I'm going to direct this movie called Shrunken Heads. Can you do the theme? Oh, sure. Yeah, no problem, bro. That's kind of how it goes. It's the same with Aliens, Clowns, and Geeks. He did the same thing there.
Do you think Danny is like, because if he had such a successful career, that he's sort of been like distanced himself from
I wouldn't say distance. It's just like he's such a massive star. I mean, in the world with Nightmare Before Christmas, I mean, you have to think about how huge Danny Elfman got after that and how, the Batman. Scores, Batman. I mean, yeah, I mean, Danny Elfman is like up here in the stratosphere where my hand is out of the screen, you can't see it, and Richard Elfman is kind of down here, kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the legacy, I mean, it is being discovered, but what I fear is that, the whole shadow, like, I'm not a huge fan of cult musical shadow casting. I know that I might be in the minority of that, but because of the sanitation of trying to sanitize, Forbidden Zone's something that you can't sanitize. And that's what, like, the legacy of it is that I hope it, it makes its rounds, and with cult musical fans, like, oh, let's pop in this DVD. I've got a film to show you. You think you've seen it all. Let's watch Forbidden Zone.
Or like, oh, you like Oingo Boingo? I've got a deep cut for you.
Yeah.
You like Nightmare Before Christmas? You like Corpse Bride?
Uh-huh. Yep. Let's go deeper. Yeah, that's kind of how a lot of people find it. It's like I came the reverse way. I found this first and then kind of went into Oingo Boingo, and I was an insufferable Oingo Boingo fan. And I still am to them to some extent, but back in the day, completely insufferable. But a lot of people are like, wow, Danny Elfman is amazing. What else has he done?
Yeah, and it's kind of like, going back to this, it's kind of like how John Waters became very commercial in the 80s and the 90s with Hairspray, Crybaby, Serial Mom. And it's kind of like Danny Elfman sort of like has become like that, whereas Richard Elfman, you don't really hear a lot about Richard Elfman unless you're in the cult scene.
Danny is a supernova, basically, compared to Richard Elfman.
Yeah.
But in terms of the legacy, I hope it stays a very kitschy underground sort of cult thing versus other cult movie musicals that the studios have tried to profit off of. Also, cult musical fans trying to change it and make it more acceptable for modern day audiences. What do you think?
Richard Elfman I think still owns this to a large extent. I think he kind of held on to the rights, so it's not like it's owned by Disney or anything. Although Queen Doris being a Disney princess would be like my dream, but so I think that he's going to continue to kind of milk it for his own stuff, like he's done. Every 20 years, every 15 years, he'll release sort of a new a director's cut. Oh, this time it's colorized. Oh, this time it's got this new commentary track. So he's going to keep kind of flowing it forward. And there's enough, it's not like in the old days when you couldn't find out about cult movies. Like you had to have a special book, you had to have a special friend. It's like now it's so much easier for people to find. So yeah, I don't think it's ever going to be corrupted.
Oh yeah, it's on Tubi under the cult classics collection. I can't think of the name of the company, but there was some recent Forbidden Zone merchandise. I don't remember.
Oh.
I believe so. Don't quote me. Or they had signed a deal for Forbidden Zone merchandise. But again, I hope it's very like limited and it's very like, I guess, targeted to fans versus, how Rocky Horror became so commercial. But I'm glad that Rocky Horror is sort of like being back, even though it's owned by Disney now and Shock Treatment.
I know.
Glad that
that means we'll never see Shock Treatment again.
No, is the whole film is in HD on YouTube and it hasn't been reviewed. It hasn't been taken down. It's
right.
I think Shock Treatment is being banned again in the States because it was released on Blu-ray. I know Tyler has the Blu-ray. It was on Blu-ray in the UK.
Yep. Oh yeah, no, I want to get a PAL player so I can actually get that because I love that movie so much.
Yeah, I had to go to a lot of trouble to like rip it just because I happen to have like an external Blu-ray drive and a burner. I mean, and oh my God. But that's the way, because as soon as it was announced, I just ordered it and I was like, I'll figure out a way to play it. But yeah, my Sony Blu-ray player from the States would not play that.
Nope. Well, I'm telling you right now, please do not send me a Blu-ray that's playable in the US of that if you have one. Don't do it. I don't want you to do it.
Why?
Sarcasm?
I mean, I don't want you to do it.
Okay. I won't then. I totally won't.
No, totally don't do that. I think that would be terrible if you did that.
Okay, well, then maybe you shouldn't give me your mailing address.
I will absolutely not give you my mailing address.
Word. We'll just wait for Disney to.
No, we are going to do the right thing and be good services, good handlers of this material.
You can.
Because it's so available, yeah.
You can jailbreak your Blu-ray player to play it. That's what I did.
Tried.
Yeah,
no,
they're not with these new
Sony
Sonys. You can't.
Yeah. I had friends in the Rocky Horror community, and again, the same one, Steve, is in Arizona, and he was like, Tyler, why can't you like break it? I'm like, it's a Sony. He had like a Toshiba or something where it was easier for him, and of course, I had to have the brand that is unbreakable.
Blu-ray then.
So there is exactly one guy who can modify Blu-ray players, and you have to kind of find him kind of secretly through these sort of underground, and you can actually purchase a Blu-ray player from him that is jailbroken, and it's fantastically expensive.
Oh yeah. That's like a weird drug deal.
It's like totally like, again, something you should not do. But yeah.
But then make the films available, Yeah.
I'll send y'all a Blu-ray player from the UK. Actually, for y'all too, but this is also for Forbidden Zone. I knew that I saw this on a cult site. There are actually nightchannels.com has official Forbidden Zone merchandise. Also, cultcollectibles.com has limited Forbidden Zone merchandise that is brand new that is sort of out. And Tyler, so it's cultcollectiblesonline.com and nightchannels.com. And I knew that when you said this, I wanted to triple check. They've actually re-released the lime green Forbidden Zone vinyl on merchbar.com. And it's only $20.
Okay.
So I'll send you.
I might be getting myself another little Christmas present then. Yeah.
So yeah,
shut up and take your money. Yeah.
Shut up and take my money.
Yep.
It's merchbar.com, and there's a limited edition lime green vinyl, and it's $20. It's $20 of the soundtrack. And cultcollectiblesonline.com has official Forbidden Zone merchandise, as does nightchannels.com. They're not that great, but it's still something.
Well, and also these days, and I've done this before for other films, if you really want merchandise, you can make your own goddamn merchandise. I mean, I'm doing that right now. It's like I'm wearing this Arborea t-shirt, which is from Beyond the Black Rainbow, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I mean, you just can jailbreak things and make your own stuff if you know how to do Illustrator or Photoshop. So.
Well, that's what I did. I mean, and obviously there's no Grease 2 merch that
there's the Apple merch, and I made a shirt for that.
So I mean, I knew it was fine. I had my cousin just because she has a machine to do it, and she made my Grease 2 shirt for me. I made the design, and because Paramount doesn't care, So, yeah.
No, I mean, you can make action figures. You can get people to make action figures. Have Queen Doris as an action figure. I mean, why not?
I would love that. And I actually did write Funko about, which I knew they wouldn't do it, but I was trying to get Grease 2 pop figures for the 40th anniversary this year. Never heard back. I never heard back about The Wiz either, a few years ago. So yeah.
So TeePublic, Redbubble, and Society6 are great for doing cult, really obscure, and they never get in trouble because it's fan art. So that's where I got my shirt, and that's where I got my Best Little Whorehouse in Texas shirt. But it is unfortunate that a lot of these movies are just, I mean, almost all except Rocky Horror of these cult musicals are overlooked in terms of merchandise, in terms of legitimate releases. The Wiz is another thing we'll talk about one day. I mean, that we think about it being a cult classic now, but it really, really hurt a majority of stars' film careers.
Yeah.
I mean, it lost a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Digress. But, I mean, so there's those three sites. So there are fans that are keeping it alive. I don't know why Hot Topic or other particular companies don't get involved with a Forbidden Zone sort of or Shark Trade.
It's too niche.
It's too niche, and it's
it is. I mean,
and I like how.
Yep, and I have one more thing. Actually, there's one piece of Forbidden Zone merchandise that I want to find, and that is the Forbidden Zone dress. And this is a Fredericks. You can't see it because I can turn my background off here for a second, but this is a Fredericks of Hollywood catalog from 1979, and this is the dress. Anyway, sorry, I can't quite get it to go, but anyway, so this dress exists. Well, there was just one on Instagram very recently that was for sale. I think it went for $400 or $500. So that dress is out there.
It's probably because they didn't have much of a budget, so they didn't have a costume department. But
it was just a dress that Suzu had, and she just brought it and wore it.
Oh my God! You could probably even make. You could probably get somebody to make it for next.
I've been at Halloween parties here in Portland where they actually came as Queen Doris and Danny Elfman as Satan, and it was amazing. It was so good. So I know it can be done.
Yeah.
So this leads into, I guess, the question we always ask: if you had to name the cult that follows Forbidden Zone.
Oh, I didn't think about this.
Elfmaniacs.
That
exists, but it's not exactly specific.
The Sixth Dimensioners?
Yeah. The Forbidden Zoners?
Forbidden Zoners, yeah.
It'll work.
It is. So I hope that, this musical turns people on to other cult musicals. There's so many connections between all cult movie musicals, whether intentional, whether non-intentional. But I hope that, somehow cult musical fans end up on Forbidden Zone, but I hope it doesn't stop there. I hope it opens up, other doors and other avenues. Like we were talking about, I hope it opens up the doors for people to see other cult movie musicals that Susan Terrell did, Crybaby,
or even her dramatic stuff, which is crazy. Yeah. But also Cab Calloway. I mean, it's a gateway drug for Cab Calloway. It's a gateway drug for these historic cartoons. There's so many things that you can hey, what's this all about? What's this Oingo Boingo all about?
Yeah.
Yeah, Danny Elfman, it could open up the floodgates for Dick Tracy because he scored Dick Tracy. I mean, everything's interconnected, and I hope it doesn't stop there. And I hope it goes back to where like I hope the whole cult musical fandom goes back to like when I discovered it at 14 or 15, where it was very underground and niche, and like I remember there was no DVD for Shock Treatment. I had to get a really bad VHS of Van
Yeah.
Gogh. So I hope it goes back. I mean, I like how they're accessible now, but I hope it stays sacred. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
talking about musicals like they're a child, but like
Mm.
I hope
Yeah.
They are our children. People that don't have children, they are our children.
Yeah.
well, yeah, I just hope they stay sacred, and I hope they stay niche and underground to where they're not polluted by the modern world.
Yeah.
So
The
That's
cool
my
people
main
will
problem
always
with it, yeah.
know these.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Like, basically what you've been saying, James. I mean, I want more people to find it, you know, and to love if that's kind of their thing where they're gonna love it like we do. As long, but I want to keep it as is. It's a product of its time.
Don't mess with it.
Don't mess with it. I want to keep Rocky Horror as it is. There's a reason that has lasted so long. So, people, yeah, just get a sense of humor about it and enjoy it. This music's great, and it's just crazy. You know, I wish it was longer. It's really short too, isn't it?
It's only
like 80
74 minutes. Yeah.
74, not even 80 minutes
74
long.
minutes,
So, yeah.
not even 80 minutes.
It took me all
But
day
it's
to
on-
watch it because people kept walking in the bank, and I was like, oh, yeah.
it's on YouTube, and it's even this is a great site, by the way, for really, 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 really hard movies to find. Internet Archive.
Oh yeah, the Internet Archive is great.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's on the original version's untouched on Internet Archive, as well as 2 other cult musicals, Strangers in Paradise and Sons of Steel, which you guys gotta watch. They're crazy.
Nice.
Mm.
But y'all have any other closing thoughts on this gem of a film?
Well, it's funny. So the coffee shop that's by my house, I like just hadn't gone in there in a while, and I went in there, and on the guy's tip jar on the counter is the picture of Danny Elfman that I have tattooed on my arm. It's like there he was on the guy's tip jar, and I'm like, did we just become best friends? And he's like, yes, we did.
Yeah.
So it's that
It's
sort of
very,
what's that?
it's very rockabilly. It's sort of very like I don't know if it's rockabilly.
I
but
would say
say it's-
rockabilly. It's vintage,
It's very punk.
yes,
punk and
Very-
vintage.
Pre-punk. Not pre-punk. Well, no, because that was around the time. So it's very, yeah, it's very.
Yeah. It's kind of like what I like to call kitsch punk, but in black and white.
There you go. That's the way to. That's the way to say it. Yeah.
performance art.
Yeah,
Performance
it's
punk.
very
Definitely.
performance art.
Yeah.
Actually, if you go on YouTube and look up Oingo Boingo on the Gong Show, they do like the last number from this as the troupe before they made the movie.
Oh
So you
my
can
gosh,
actually go
yeah.
see what their troupe was like because they perform on the Gong Show.
I just how the Kipper kids got involved. I've done research. I'm
I
like, they really like in jock straps and their long sort of like Pinocchio noses and
Which the first time I ever saw them was when they very briefly appear on in
Yeah.
UHF, the Weird Al movie, because they've got like the umbrella, and so
Yep.
then I finally saw Forbidden Zone, and the minute I
Well,
heard
was
their
that
What the
voices,
fuck? Yeah.
I was like, it's them, and then I
Yeah.
realized that's where Pee Wee got his thing, and Pee Wee's Big Adventure with the tape, and
Mhm.
you know, because he's like, hello, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like so many things I love. Just
Totally.
it's
And they
like
have
the-
their own movie
yeah.
too. So there is a actual Kipper Kids movie that you can go
I
out and
didn't know
find.
that.
It's bonkers. It's kind of almost unwatchable, but it's still like if you're a Kipper Kids completist, you should go see it.
But is that all they do for the whole movie? Is just the you know?
They're just kind of goofy like that. And there was also a laser disc that Bette Midler did because she's married to one of them, where they show up and kind of harass her in that character, which is bizarre too. So that's also out there. There's
I have to
more.
see that.
You can go down the Kipper Kids rabbit hole.
I don't know, man. I
was
can. I try. Yeah.
You know about that.
I was so looking forward to your impression because you did it last time and I thought it was hilarious. Your impression of the Kipper kids. Like
Who, me?
Yes.
Did I do it last time?
Yeah, you were just doing it a minute ago.
Before we
Oh.
were talking. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
This is not a musical, but I'll just tell you guys this you can watch it. It's not bank worthy. You can't watch this in the bank. It's a sexploitation film. It's called Thundercrack. Have you ever heard of Thundercrack?
No, but I'm definitely not
No.
watching that in the bank.
Oh dear. Yeah, don't watch that at the bank.
Forbidden Zone, you could kind of like cover and.
Thundercrack. Have you ever heard of Thundercrack, Helena?
No, I haven't.
It was in the 70s, and it's very much Rocky Horror, but it was before Rocky Horror. And I digress, I promise you. But it is about these people who go to get lost in the rain and go to this house, and it's owned by this very eccentric woman. And there's all kinds of bisexual sex and straight sex and gay sex. And there's some really nasty things that happen with cucumbers. But it wasn't marketed as a porn film. It was marketed as sexploitation comedy. And there's a gorilla. And there's somebody in a tutu. It's very reminds me a lot of The Forbidden Zone. It's called Thundercrack.
Hey,
Um,
I got my notepad over here. I've been writing these
I
things
know.
down
I'm
as
like
we've been
looking
talking
up
about them.
things here. Yeah.
I'm gonna go
there's,
buy all of the
it's-
Forbidden Zone merchandise.
Thundercrack, and you can watch it. It's apparently like it's very underground. And, like one of all I say is my favorite quote. I'm not as like pure as you think I am. I watched some pretty fucked up film. But there's a quote that I love it. I love it is she goes, I mustn't forget my cucumbers. But anyway, very Forbidden Zone.
How have
And then
I
they-
not seen this?
Anyway, I digress. But it's very Forbidden Zone-ish, and it's called Thundercrack. It's beyond explanation. It's very much like Multiple Maniacs, and
It sounds like Gums, if you've ever heard of that one.
I have not.
No.
Oh God. So Gums was the sexploitation takeoff of Jaws. And
Oh,
it's all
God.
about mermaids. And it has Brother Theodore in it, who I love,
Oh,
as
Brother
like the
Theodore.
Quint, as sort of the Quint character. So it's I recommend at least his parts of it. The rest of it's kind of lame, but it's goofy. It's goofy as shit.
That's
Um,
y'all's homework to watch Thundercrack, by the way.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to find it on IMDb here.
Thundercrack with an
Is it?
exclamation point.
I'm sorry.
Thundercrack with an exclamation point.
Okay, and it's thunder, separate word, crack.
No,
Exclamation?
Probably all one word, I imagine.
So it is one word. That's what I thought. I see
Yeah.
Thunder Cock. That's from 2021.
I think you're.
Oh my.
I think
Thunder
you're
Cluck.
database, hun. But thank y'all so much.
Oh, IMDb. Yeah. Okay, I'll find it.
Not ICDB. What? Oh.
I don't
But-
know what that is.
So much for being here as always. Y'all are just
Yeah.
stars.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. You know, I love it. I love it. My people.